Elena Morel had driven through winter storms before, but nothing like this one. The radio had called it an unexpected Arctic blast, but that didn't come close to describing the wall of white that swallowed the highway by dusk. The wind wasn't just strong, it pushed the car like it wanted her to stop moving altogether. She shouldn't have taken the back road through Pine Ridge, but Google Maps showed it as the shortest way home. No traffic, no closures, no help. The snow thickened until the beams of her headlights hit a swirling screen of flakes. The world outside the windshield looked like static, alive, shifting, suffocating. She slowed to a crawl, hands shaking on the wheel. Then she saw the figure. A man, hunched over, walking in the blizzard with no coat, no hat. Just a dark shirt whipping in the wind as he staggered forward. Elena rolled down the passenger window a crack. "Sir, are you okay?" The man didn't answer. He didn't even turn his head. He just kept walking, one slow step at a time, like he couldn't feel the cold, or the ice forming on his eyelashes, or the way his fingers were turning almost blue. Elena pulled ahead of him, trying to get his attention. But when she glanced in the mirror, he wasn't behind her anymore. Not walking. Not on the ground. Gone. She scanned the storm, panic creeping in. No footprints. No movement. Nothing but the blinding white. Her phone buzzed, a sudden vibration that made her jump. No caller ID. She answered with shaking hands. "Hello?" Silence. Then she heard it, breathing. Slow, crackling breathing like someone exhaling through frozen lungs. She pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "Who is this?" The breathing hitched, and then a man whispered, "You should have kept driving." The line cut. Elena dropped the phone like it was burning her. She grabbed the wheel and hit the gas, heart pounding, vision blurring from fear and cold. The storm swallowed the road again, but she didn't slow. Not this time. Her headlights flickered. The engine whined. Then someone banged on the roof of her car. One single heavy thud. Elena screamed and swerved, skidding onto the iced shoulder. The car fishtailed before sliding to a stop inches from a ditch. Her breath fogged the cabin in frantic bursts. The roof creaked. Something shifted above her, slowly, dragging across the metal. She could hear it even over the wind, a heavy weight, crawling. She gripped the keys, ready to throw the car into reverse. Then a face appeared on her windshield, but it wasn't pressed against the glass. It was inside the car's reflection, like a pale, frostbitten figure staring at her from the surface of the ice forming on the windshield. Its eyes were wide, milky, dripping melted snow like tears. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out. Elena floored the gas. The car lurched backward, nearly hitting a tree, then shot forward with a howl of the engine. She didn't care where she was going. She just needed distance, space, anything to get away from whatever that was. Her windshield wipers scraped uselessly against the ice. The storm roared louder, pushing back against her speed. She felt something hit the rear bumper. Once. Twice. Hard. Like someone was trying to climb in. She couldn't see. She couldn't think. She just drove, trusting instinct over eyesight. The road curved. Her tires barely held. The storm thinned for a moment, giving her a glimpse. A blue highway sign. Shelter 2 miles. Elena slammed her foot down and didn't let it off until she reached the small ranger station sitting half buried in snow. Warm lights glowed in the windows. Smoke rose from a chimney. Salvation. She stumbled inside, breathless, nearly collapsing as the ranger rushed toward her. "Ma'am, are you hurt? What happened?" Elena shook her head violently. "Someone was on the road. He was following me. He was on my car. He was..." The ranger's face shifted slowly from concern to something else. Pity. He guided her to a chair and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "You're not the first to say that," he murmured. "This storm bring things with it." Elena stared at him, heart thudding. "What do you mean?" The ranger pulled off his gloves, rubbing his hands to warm them. In '89, a rescue team went out during a storm like this. They found a man frozen standing upright near Pine Ridge Road. No coat, no shoes, just frost down to the bone. His body temperature was lower than anything they'd ever recorded. He paused, but his eyes were open, like he was still looking for something. Elena swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" The ranger's expression softened. "Because the next night people started seeing him on the road, walking, following cars, trying to get inside." Elena's stomach flipped violently. She backed away from him. "You're saying I saw—" A loud bang hit the window. The ranger stepped between her and the glass, flashlight in hand. Another bang, louder, then a dragging sound, like something heavy sliding across the roof. Elena clutched the blanket, eyes wide. The ranger whispered, "He doesn't like when someone doesn't stop for him." The lights flickered. The window frosted over from the outside. A pale outline formed in the ice. A hand, pressing inward. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Darren Kepler had been the night shift caretaker at Ridgehaven Retirement Lodge for 6 years, and he thought he'd seen every strange thing old age could bring. Sleepwalkers, confused residents, people calling out for loved ones long gone. But nothing prepared him for the ice storm of '21. The power went out just after midnight. The wind howled like a living thing outside, forcing snow through the tiniest cracks in the old building. Emergency lights kicked on, casting the entire hallway in a sickly red glow. Darren began checking rooms one by one. Most residents were asleep. Most. Room 112 was empty. Mrs. Holbrook, 92 years old, barely able to stand, was gone. Her blankets lay on the floor, her shoes still under the bed, her window wide open, wind blasting in as snow gathered on the hardwood floor. Darren rushed to the window and looked down. There were footprints in the snow, bare footprints, leading away from the building, into the woods behind the lodge, into the storm. His breath shook. He grabbed a flashlight, threw on his coat, and followed the trail. The wind sliced his face like knives. Snow drifted sideways, thick and violent. The footprints were clear at first. Deep impressions of old, fragile feet stepping one after another into deadly cold. But the farther he followed, the stranger they became. The steps grew longer, then wider, then impossibly far apart. Mrs. Holbrook could barely shuffle 10 feet on her best day. These strides were wrong. Darren's pulse quickened. "Mrs. Holbrook!" he yelled into the storm. Only the wind answered. He kept going until he reached a clearing surrounded by tall, frozen pines. His flashlight jerked across something ahead. Fabric. A nightgown. Mrs. Holbrook stood perfectly still at the center of the clearing, facing away from him. Relief hit him sharply. "Mrs. Holbrook, stay right there, I'm coming." Then she turned. Her feet didn't move. Her body rotated at the waist. Her shoulders twisted with a slow cracking sound. Her face was pale blue, frost clinging to her eyebrows and lips. Her eyes were wide, unblinking and cloudy. Snowflakes collected in her hair, but she didn't shake, didn't shiver, didn't breathe. She opened her mouth, but the voice that came out wasn't hers. "Not her." Darren stumbled backward, flashlight rattling in his grip. "Mrs. Holbrook, what happened to you?" The figure tilted its head with a jagged, unnatural motion. Its neck stretched just a bit too far. The nightgown fluttered violently, whipped by wind. yet the body beneath remained perfectly rigid. Then it stepped toward him, just one step. But the sound of it, the crunch of ice, echoed wrong, deeper, like something enormous moving just beneath the surface of the frozen ground. Darren ran. Branches whipped his face. The storm pummeled him as he fought his way through the trees. Behind him, slow, deliberate footsteps crunched in the snow. Calm, steady, unhurried. Like whatever that thing was knew he would tire long before it did. He reached the lodge's back door and slammed it shut behind him. His breath fogged the air as he leaned against the door listening. For a moment, nothing. Then a single knock. Not loud. Not frantic. Just a slow, careful tap, like a polite visitor waiting to be let inside. Darren stumbled away. He ran down the hall and radioed the nearest police station, begging for help. But the storm had knocked out most communications. The line crackled. "What happened?" an officer asked through static. Darren choked out the story. Mrs. Halbrook, the footprints, the whispering, the thing in the woods. Silence. Then the officer spoke again, voice strangely calm. "Stay inside. Do not open the doors. If she comes back, don't look at her eyes." The radio died. Darren locked every door, every window. He checked on the residents who now stirred in their beds, mumbling strange things, things that made no sense. "She's coming," whispered one. "The one in the snow," another murmured. "She learned how to walk again," said a third. Darren backed away from each room, fear crawling under his skin. Then the fire alarms went off. Not from fire, but from cold. The sensors registered below freezing temperatures inside the hall near the back door. Frost crept along the floor like living veins. The overhead lights dimmed as the emergency heating system struggled against the sudden drop. Darren approached slowly. A shape stood behind the frosted glass window of the back door, small, frail, wearing a nightgown, but taller now, far taller than Mrs. Halbrook had ever been. The figure breathed onto the glass. Ice bloomed outward from the point of contact. Its voice leaked through the cracks around the door in a breathless whisper. "Cold, enough now." Darren staggered back. The door handle twitched, then twisted. He turned and ran to the front of the lodge, pounding on the phones, the radios, anything, but everything was dead. The storm howled outside, rattling the walls. Then, silence. Not wind, not snow, not breathing, just silence. He lifted his flashlight. A pale hand gripped the far end of the hallway wall, long fingers curling around the corner. Then a second hand. Then a third. Darren realized the truth too late. It wasn't walking anymore. It was climbing. The lights flickered. Frost spread across the ceiling. And the last thing Darren saw before he blacked out was the figure stretching itself across the wall like a spider made of frozen human limbs. In the morning, the storm ended. Residents were safe. Darren was found unconscious in the hall. And Mrs. Halbrook? They found her body outside, frozen solid, face buried in the snow, as if she had collapsed hours before the storm even began. But her footprints, they led toward the lodge, not away from it. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Caleb Horn worked maintenance at the Ridgeway ski lift, a narrow steel line stretching 3 miles up the mountain. By day, tourists rode it to the summit lodge. By night, it was shut down, motionless and silent, hanging over endless white. On the night the ice storm hit, Caleb was the last man on site. The power had flickered all afternoon, and the management asked him to do one last inspection before locking up. He didn't want to. Every cable, every tower, every chair groaned under the weight of gathering ice, but he needed the overtime. He rode the snowmobile up to Tower 7 first, The wind screamed so loudly he could barely think. Snowflakes stung his skin like thrown gravel. The towers loomed above him like skeletons of radio masts, each one coated in thick, jagged frost. Something felt wrong the moment he arrived. One of the chairs was still moving. Just one. Swinging slightly back and forth even though the lift had been turned off hours earlier. The wind wasn't blowing hard enough to move it like that. This was steady, deliberate, almost rhythmic. Caleb muttered to himself and climbed the maintenance ladder. He walked the narrow grated walkway toward the tower's control box, boots clanging on frozen metal. Halfway across, the chair swung again. He froze. There was someone sitting in it, a person, hunched forward, head bowed, arms dangling limply. Their clothes were caked with frost so thick it almost looked like carved ice. "Hey!" Caleb shouted over the wind. "Lift's closed! You can't be up here!" The figure didn't move, didn't shiver, didn't even breathe. Caleb's flashlight dimmed as the storm thickened. He aimed it directly at the chair. The person's face was hidden under a hood of ice. He stepped closer. "Sir, can you hear me?" The wind died suddenly, like the mountain was holding its breath. Caleb swallowed hard and took another step. The grated walkway creaked under him. Snow swirled in tight circles, funneling around Tower 7 like invisible hands twisting the air. Then the figure raised its head. A slow scraping movement, like frozen tendons cracking open. Its eyes were covered in a sheet of translucent ice, glowing faintly blue from the reflection of Caleb's flashlight. Its jaw hung slightly open, ice crystals breaking off in small flakes. Caleb stumbled back. "Jesus, are you hurt?" The figure lifted an arm. The ice cracked loudly, echoing across the valley. Then its frozen hand pointed upward, not at Caleb, at the cable. Caleb turned his light upward and nearly slipped off the walkway. Dozens of other figures clung to the line, motionless, frozen in place, bodies hanging upside down like icicles wearing human shapes. Their clothes were shredded, stiff with frost. Some were missing gloves or boots. One hung by a single arm that looked snapped at the elbow, dangling like a broken puppet. Caleb's chest tightened. No, those are mannequin, right? But their faces said otherwise. Some had mouths frozen mid-scream. Some had eyes crystallized open. One had its lips pulled back so violently the skin had split into icicle-like tendrils. The figure in the chair suddenly twitched. A long cracking sound ran down its spine. Then it spoke. But the voice didn't match the shape. It was deeper, older, like air escaping ancient ice. "Don't wake them!" Caleb backed up, hands trembling. Wake who? What is happening? The hanging body shifted slightly, just a ripple, like something heavy had touched the cable miles away. The entire lift creaked ominously. The storm intensified. Snow blasted sideways with unnatural force. Caleb grabbed the railing to steady himself. The ice-caked figure in the chair leaned forward, its neck bending too far, cracking audibly. They hear movement. Caleb ran. He sprinted down the walkway, nearly slipping on frost, heart pounding so loudly he couldn't hear the wind anymore. The snowmobile was a blurry hope ahead of him. Behind him, the cable groaned. The sound traveled down the line like a metal growl. He didn't look back. He reached the snowmobile, started it with shaking hands, and shot down the slope. Frost stung his cheeks. Shadows moved in the storm around him. Halfway down the mountain, his headlights caught something that made him scream. The figures were on the ground, not all of them, just a few, standing in the middle of the slope, facing him. Their heads tilted at the exact same angle, their limbs twisted like branches frozen mid-snap. He swerved violently to avoid them, nearly overturning. The snowmobile skidded, righted itself, and he roared forward. Faster, faster, faster. When he finally reached the base station, he crawled off, too numb to stand. He staggered inside and slammed the door shut. Silence, then a dull metallic sound overhead. A single body hanging from the gondola cable above the station, swaying gently in the storm. In the morning, rescuers found nothing on the cable. Nothing in Tower 7, no bodies, no figures. But the graded walkway had deep, fresh grooves carved into the ice, like dozens of frozen hands had dragged themselves across it. Caleb quit the same day. And every winter since then, when storms hit the mountain, the lift operators swear they hear something on the cables. Not the wind. Footsteps. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Every winter, the townspeople of Norrick Falls warned newcomers about the Icebound bridge on Route 19. It was an old iron truss bridge with no traffic after midnight, not since the accident 15 years ago. A bus full of factory workers slid off during a blizzard and plunged into the frozen river below. They never found the bodies. They found the bus, bent, mangled, half sunk into the ice. But every diver who went down swore the same thing. No one was inside. Some said the river pulled them deeper. Some said the cold took them. Others said the bridge kept them. On the night of the biggest ice storm in a decade, Amber Collins was the only EMT on duty for the north side of town. Calls were coming in non-stop. Slips, crashes, frostbite. But one call stopped her cold. Possible survivor spotted on Route 19 near the bridge. Impossible. No one should have been out there. She drove slowly through the storm, windshield wipers fighting against sheets of ice. Snow fell sideways, the wind screaming like it wanted to push her off the road. When she reached the highway bend, the lights of the bridge emerged through the white like a rusted skeleton. Her headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the bridge. A man, shirtless, barefoot, frost clinging to his eyelashes, his arms, his hair, his skin almost blue. Amber slammed on the brakes. "Sir, hey, don't move, I'm coming to help." She stepped out into the howl of the storm, grabbing a thermal blanket. The snow swallowed her boots immediately. She fought her way forward, one hand gripping the railing for balance. The man didn't react, didn't turn, didn't even sway in the wind. He just stood facing the opposite end of the bridge, like he was waiting for something. "Sir, can you hear me?" Amber shouted. When she got close, she saw something that made her freeze. His feet weren't on the ground. They hovered an inch above the ice. Amber stumbled back so hard she nearly dropped the blanket. The man slowly rotated, legs unmoving, body twisting around its axis like it was suspended in invisible strings. His face was wrong. Too pale, too smooth. And his eyes. His eyes were wide open but coated in a thin sheen of ice, like frozen marbles reflecting the storm. He opened his mouth. No breath came out, no sound, just the faint crackle of ice breaking inside his throat. Amber whispered, "Oh my God." The man raised his arm, slowly, pointing down the bridge toward the river. Amber shook her head. "Sir, please, let me help you. You need to..." Her radio hissed violently. Then a voice she didn't recognize whispered through the static. "Don't follow him." Amber staggered back, gripping her coat. "Who is this? Dispatch?" Static. Then another voice layered underneath the first, lower, strained, like someone speaking through a mouthful of ice. "He belongs to the river." The figure stepped toward her, but he didn't walk. He slid, his body moving without his legs shifting, drifting silently across the bridge as if pushed by something behind him. Amber bolted back to her ambulance. The figure glided faster. She dove inside and slammed the door, heart hammering. Her breath fogged the air as the figure appeared directly in front of her headlights, face inches from the glass though he hadn't stepped at all. Amber threw the ambulance into reverse. The figure's jaw split. The skin cracked and fell away in jagged flakes, revealing a mouth that stretched too far, pulled open by ice itself. A sound poured out. Not a scream. A rushing, bubbling noise, like river water under ice moving fast and deep. The ambulance skid backwards, fishtailing, until Amber regained control and slammed it into drive, speeding away from the bridge as fast as the conditions allowed. When she finally reached town, she burst into the station in tears. Her supervisor sat her down, trying to calm her. She choked out the story, the hovering man, the voice on the radio, the impossible footsteps, the rivers whispering. Her supervisor didn't look shocked. He looked tired. After a long silence, he said, "We get one sighting every year the storm hits hard." Amber stared at him, shaking. "Who is he?" Her supervisor sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Not a who." He nodded toward the window, where the storm hammered against the glass. "A what?" Amber swallowed. "What happened to the bus?" He didn't answer at first. Then quietly, "They say the bridge doesn't like letting things go. Not people, not souls, not sound. Whatever falls through its ice stays walking until the river freezes deep enough to claim it." Amber pressed a hand over her mouth. That night, long after she clocked out, she sat awake in her apartment listening to the wind. The storm howled against the buildings, rattling windows, tearing at rooftops. Then faintly, a knock. Slow, polite, rhythmic, like knuckles tapping on glass and from the wrong side of it. Amber froze. The knocking stopped. Then a voice whispered through the doorframe, her radio's voice, deep and wet and cold. "Don't follow him." Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. The ice storm had knocked out power across 3 towns, and the only place still lit was Clearbrook Radiology, a small diagnostic center built beside the frozen river. Their generator ran automatically, humming like a low mechanical growl in the dark. Riley Kemp, the overnight technician, was one of the only staff members stuck on site that night. She hated being alone in the building, especially during storms. The building was too quiet after midnight, the hallways too narrow, the lights too dim, and the MRI room. She tried never to look into the MRI viewing window when the lights were off. The tunnel always reminded her of a mouth waiting for someone to crawl inside. At 1:43 a.m., the emergency line rang. A male voice whispered through static, "They're stuck out there. Please, send help." "Sir, calm down. Who is stuck? Where are you?" But all she heard next was wind whipping the microphone and the faint echo of a second voice behind him, higher pitched, wet, almost choking. "Don't move!" Then the line died. Riley tried to call back, but the signals were gone. The storm interference was too strong. She logged the call anyway and was about to radio the sheriff when every light in the building flickered. For a moment, the entire MRI wing went dark. Then the lights came back, dimmer than before. Her stomach tightened. The generator never flickered. Something else had made the lights drop. She grabbed a flashlight and started down the hallway. Her boots crunched over frost forming on the tiles, a thin white dusting like powdered snow. That made no sense. The building was sealed, heated, protected against drafts. But the frost thickened the deeper she went. She rounded the corner and froze. The MRI room door was open. She had locked it earlier. The air spilling out of the doorway felt colder than the hallway, cold enough that frost crawled in tendrils across the tiles leading toward her like reaching fingers. Her breath fogged. "Hello?" she called out. Something shifted inside the MRI room, a soft dragging sound. something heavy being pulled across the smooth floor. Riley lifted her flashlight. The beam caught a shape lying half inside the MRI tunnel, legs sticking out, feet bare, skin blue and cracked like ice fracturing on a frozen pond. "Sir," she whispered shakily. The legs twitched. Then the entire body began sliding deeper into the MRI tube, pulled by something she couldn't see. She took one shaky step forward, and the lights cut again. A second of pitch black. When they came back, the legs were gone. The room was empty, except for the footprints. Wet, icy footprints leading from the MRI table toward the viewing window. Riley's throat closed. There was someone standing behind the protective glass on the other side. A pale figure, tall, shoulders hunched forward, its face pressed to the glass, making the frost bloom outward from the point of contact. Riley screamed and stumbled back against the wall. The figure tilted its head slowly, neck cracking loudly against the glass. Its eyes were wide and frozen, literal ice over the pupils. It smiled, or tried to, the lips splitting open into thin, jagged tears as if frozen skin couldn't stretch. Riley bolted back down the hallway, slipping on the frost-kissed tiles. She could hear footsteps behind her, slow, steady, echoing through the hallway, even though she didn't feel vibrations on the floor. It wasn't walking, it was gliding. She ducked into the control room and slammed the door. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she locked it. Frost crawled visibly across the glass window of the control room door, dimming the light. The footsteps stopped on the other side. A shadow appeared, a tall one, motionless. Then a second shadow stepped up beside it, smaller, bent, dragging something. Riley clamped a hand over her mouth to stop herself from crying out. The smaller shadow moved first. Its head jerked. Its arm twitched. Then it pressed something against the glass. A frostbitten human hand, detached. Its fingers curled slowly as if still trying to reach for warmth. Riley gagged and backed away from the window. Her flashlight flickered and died. The emergency lights dimmed again, humming lower and lower until she feared they would cut entirely. Then the MRI machine behind her turned on. It hummed to life, louder than she'd ever heard it, far too loud. The magnets shouldn't activate without an operator. The machine pulsed like a heartbeat, vibrations shaking the control room. The shadows outside jerked suddenly. One figure slammed against the glass. Its face pressed to it. Ice crackled. Its jaw hung loose. A stream of frozen saliva dripped from its chin. The second shadow shifted, dragging something heavy across the floor. Riley peeked through the corner of the window. A third figure, crawling. Its spine twisted upward like a broken branch, ribs poking through torn skin. It clawed toward the MRI room with long, stiff arms. The magnets were pulling them. The MRI was calling them. Riley realized the truth too late. Whatever died in the river during the storm, the missing hikers, the frozen drifters, the ones lost to the cold, they were being drawn here. The MRI wasn't malfunctioning. It was attracting them, pulling them back, reassembling them. Riley burst through the emergency exit, snow slamming into her face. She ran through the storm, slipping, choking on icy air. She didn't stop until she reached the main road and flagged down a plow truck. When deputies arrived an hour later, they found the MRI room door frozen shut from the inside, and inside the machine's tunnel, a shape, rolled tight like someone curled into a fetal position, skin frozen, bones wrong, and a hand pressed against the inside of the tube in a perfect bloody smear. The body wasn't Riley's, and it wasn't alone. Traces of two others were found in the frost on the floor, drag marks in parallel, as if something crawled out with company. The radiology center closed the next morning. Riley quit the profession entirely. And on nights when the cold returns and the river freezes, She swears she can still hear the hum of the MRI following her. Magnetic, patient, calling her back. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to NightFear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.